Hey, good afternoon everyone. Today it's again one of those very lovely, wet, rainy, dreary autumn days. So I thought, well, we're in need of some comfort food. Luckily, earlier on this week we had these shanks on sale at the local supermarket. So I thought, why not tackle a good Italian classic and make some osso buco. Osso buco is just a simple way of making braised shanks, braised in a very simple, as you will see, sauce, but also lovely. And it's also the epitome of slow cooking. So this takes a lot of time, low heat, but again, lovely. What we're going to need is just some very basic ingredients. So first of all, we've got here our shanks. Now this is actually veal, which is actually the most traditional one. Personally, I actually prefer to use beef because A, they're cheaper, they take a little more time, but they provide more flavor. Furthermore, it's our classic ingredients to make a sofrito. So, sofrito, mirpo as the French say, is just our mix of carrots, celery, that's nearly past by date, but it'll be good for a stew, and some onions. Furthermore, just something basic, we're doing Italian cooking, so we will be needing some garlic, a bit of white wine, bit of stock, and some tomato product. Now a lot of people typically use canned tomatoes, some use fresh. I had a near the full can of passata on hand, so we'll be using that. But enough said, let's get cooking, guys. Now first order of business, that will be to season up our shanks. Now first thing we're going to do is just gently season up with some salt and some freshly ground pepper on both sides. No need to go too fancy, this will braise for a long time. Now next thing we want to do is coat these things in flour. I've already discussed my little tip and trick to which I hold. So we are going to use one clean plastic baggie, about a good rich tablespoon of all-purpose flour. And we want to, of course, get the bag open. There we go. And we just put our meat inside. Only thing left to do was basically to, well, shake up the bag a little bit. And you'll see as you retrieve your meat, you're gonna get a near perfect light dusting of flour everywhere. Worked great every time. Next order of business, that will be to handle our vegetables. Now we want to actually dice these. So correct kitchen term, that's brunoise in nice French. So just to make it easy on myself, I'm gonna cut the sides of our celery, and I'll probably cut this in, well, about 3 equal strips as such. Furthermore, we just turn and we chop. Next vegetable, since we haven't handled this, I think it's gonna be carrots. Now again, we want to dice these up. Now first of all, a lot of chefs will tell you try and cut all your pieces as meticulously nice and uniform as you can. Personally, if you're actually doing a stewing dish that's gonna take a few hours, I wouldn't really bother too much. So but what we're going to be doing with our carrot to dice, that is actually, there we go, again cut first down one way down the other, and we'll cut that one too. Again, twist around, and we are dicing. We're done with our veggies. So just what I wanted to point out, I have made a pretty, well, equal portions about of carrots, celery and onions, but again, don't be too anal about your proportions. This is eyeballing. Stews are very forgiving, so just pretty much try to aim for an equal division between the three. As our pan is nicely hot, we're of course going to brown our shanks. Now we just want these to pick up some color on either side. And that is basically it. No need to cook these things through. Again, we're stewing these later on. So, but we're just going to let them pick up some color, turn a lovely brown, and we can continue with our vegetables. Our beef shanks have gotten time to develop some color. So we can set these aside, add just a bit more butter, a little bit. There we go. Just to stew our vegetables now. First thing you'll see, there's a couple of crusted up bits of flour that came off the shanks. Don't be too bothered about that. They are crusted in pretty well, but they'll come loose with cooking, so don't worry. So I'm just going to stew in my veggies until they get nice and soft. I'm also going to add some aromatic herbs. So I have some thyme, some rosemary, a bit of oregano actually in there. Now a couple of the real die-hard traditionalist Italian chefs would say no to that, but I just feel it's a tomato sauce and it just helps bring out colors and flavors just a whole lot better this way. So as our vegetables start stewing, start losing a little bit of water, they will already help to get loose, get these crusty little bits loose. And in about 2-3 minutes, we should be ready to introduce our liquids. Our veggies have had time to soften up somewhat, and it's time to add some liquid. So first of all, we're going to douse the entire pot with what I'm estimating to be a very rich glass of white wine. Now in my case, normally you add about a similar amount of stock. Now if you see how I make my stock, this is basically pure gelatinized concentrate. So we're going to add about good 2 tablespoons, and I will add a little extra water to compensate for the lack of water in the pot. And as you see, all these crusty little bits, they've basically already gone. And last but not least, a good douse of our tomato sauce. We can just reintroduce our shanks. Do not, of course, discard any liquid accumulated on the plate. Now comes the hard part. Waiting. Now, great secret if you're making an osso buco, that is, of course, this needs to braise as long as you can get away with without having the meat basically fall apart. I think for these veal shanks they're pretty big, so they will spend around about 2 hours at a very low heat. So we want this just barely bubbling. If this were beef, as I've done before, you can go up to 3 to 4 hours, a bit on the high side if you're actually working with veal like this. So, but I think 2 hours, 2 hours and a half max, and we should be ready for dinner. Well guys, it's been, well, pretty much just about 2 hours and our shanks are done. Now, greatest test I think is basically just poke into it, and for me at least the consistency, it should be so much or so tender that you can nearly just drop the knife straight through without having to push. So, but meat is nice and tender. Our sauce is nicely seasoned and thickened up somewhat. So I'm just going to serve this personally with a bit of risotto and a good glass of white wine. Again, it's a great bit of comfort food. As you see, easy to do. It just takes some time. Just, well, try and enjoy.